Hello and welcome to the Single Society. My name is Jo and it's great to have you with me today as we explore books that are empowering when it comes to singles life. There is often a far too negative slant put on being single when in fact there is so much to celebrate and enjoy. If you have not yet subscribed, please take a second to do so now. It means you can more easily find future episodes, enjoy all that's best about being single and help me to grow this community of single people. So there are three books that we are going to look at today. There are of course hundreds of examples of books that are empowering when it comes to being single, and I would love to know what recommendations you have. I am an obsessive reader. If you are watching this video rather than just listening, you can see the bookcases in the background. I read constantly, so I would love your recommendations as to what books are empowering when it comes to being single. The three I've chosen, we have a fiction, a non-fiction and poetry. I am going to do an episode in the future on films and I will try and include plays in that as well. So again, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you know when that next one comes out. But let's dive in for now. I am going to start with the fiction book first of all. So this one, the one I have chosen, is called The Only Woman in the Room. It is by, apologies if I say this wrong, Marie Benedict, I believe. Marie Benedict. I find it really hard to describe books without giving too much away. So I'm going to give you like an incredibly brief synopsis. And then explain why I've picked it in terms of it being empowering about being single, because that's the bit we're really interested in. We want to think of it from that perspective. So I'm actually realizing probably the easiest thing for me to do is to just read out this bit at the back, because somebody much more clever than I will have crafted this so as to not give anything too pivotal away when it comes to the plot. So this one at the back, it says, her beauty, this is the main character, her beauty almost certainly saved her from the rising Nazi party and led to marriage with an Austrian arms dealer. Underestimated in everything else, she overheard the Third Reich's plans while at her husband's side, understanding more than anyone would guess. She devised a plan to flee in disguise from their castle, and the whirlwind escape landed her in Hollywood. She became Hedy Lamarr, screen star. So it's about Hedy Lamarr, the famous film actress. You may well have seen one of her films or probably have heard of her. And I know it seems odd because obviously it starts with her getting married, to think about it as celebrating single life. But actually, again, I'm hopefully not giving any spoilers, it tells you there she leaves her husband, and for most of the novel, not all of it, but for most of it, she's single. She's escaped a quite seriously unhappy marriage with somebody who was involved in Hitler's Nazi Germany, and she manages to escape that scenario and set it by herself, not only as an actress, but again, this is a little bit of a teaser, but as somebody who also has a lot to contribute in the scientific world as well. She's an incredibly beautiful woman and is therefore constantly underestimated in terms of her academic abilities. I loved this. I found it so gripping to read. Just to give you a little bit of colour and context, I first read it on a trip to the Isle of Man, which is beautiful. I would highly recommend a visit, but I get incredibly seasick, so the ferry journey was not my favourite. But I had this book with me, The Only Woman in the Room, and it distracted me so well. I was so gripped in the story that I really forgot about the fact that I wasn't feeling well. And I feel like if a book can make you forget that you're not feeling great, it's a pretty good book. And it is empowering, but I guess particularly as a woman, but I do feel like anybody could read it and really enjoy it. So that's the fiction recommendation. Please do let me know in the comments about what other books you'd recommend that are empowering when it comes to being single. The non-fiction book that I have chosen is called The Happy Me Project. This one is by Holly Matthews. Now, I almost feel guilty confessing this, but I used to slightly look down on anything that might have been kind of like pitched or branded as a self-help book. I just didn't feel like it was for me. And this was the first one that I like fully engaged with when I came across it. And it really has changed my mind. I think I was being quite judgmental, to be honest, about um, thinking that it wasn't for me. I think literally all of us are continually working on ourselves, learning more about ourselves. And although she's not explicitly writing only for single people, the reason I wanted to recommend it and the reason I found it really empowering is because she does get you to look at so many different areas of your life and really reflect on things more fully. I mean, I won't tell you anything by any means, because this book covers so many different things, but just to give you a flavor as to the scope, she goes all the way from the foundations. You can see the contents page here, about how the brain works, so like how we're wired, how we operate, through to things like meditation, how we might process guilt, having a good nighttime ritual so we can unwind at the end of the day, spending time in nature. There's loads of different things. And again, I did it for the first one, so I'm just going to read a tiny little bit from this back here. And it says, everyone can access happiness. It's a case of learning how. Holly Matthews is on a mission to make your life better, and she's keeping it simple. No BS, no fluff. The Happy Me project is 60 short chapters, and they are, I know 60 sounds a lot, but they're really little chapters. 60 short chapters of straight to the point advice, structured for our time poor modern world, and packed with practical tips on ways to fill your life with more joy. I really enjoyed it. It really converted me. So yeah, that is my non-fiction choice. And then last, and please don't panic, this I'm going to keep this nice and short, but the last thing I wanted to recommend was a poetry book. And I know poetry is not for everyone, but I do think it's for more people than you might realize. Um the one I'm going to recommend, and you can see it's quite worn because I've taken it on and off my shelf so many times, is called The Poetry Pharmacy. And it's called pharmacy because it's almost like medication for your soul, basically. So whereas you might have painkillers if you've got a headache, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling doubtful, if you're feeling alone, there will be something in this book that is the medicine that you need. And it's broken down into different sections, so different feelings that you might have, so you can go straight to the bit that feels right. This is only 3 lines, it's super short, but I'm just going to give you a little flavour of the book. And this poem is called Your Task, and it's attributed to a writer called Rumi. And it says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. So it's really beautiful. It's gorgeously produced, kind of lovely writing throughout. If you feel like poetry isn't your thing, this is actually a really nice starting point. It does help kind of ease you in. So that was the Poetry Pharmacy. The non-fiction was the Happy Me project, and then the fiction was The Only Woman in the Room. I'd love to know your recommendations for empowering books about being single. Please do let me know in the comments, and if you've yet to subscribe, make sure you do so that you get notified when there are more episodes. I'll see you there.